Good morning. Well, welcome to the city of Dublin. We are so thrilled that you are with us today. Joining me are some of my fellow city council members. We have Kathy DeRosa, Jane Fox, Andy Keeler, Amy Cram, John Reiner, and Vice Mayor Christina Aludo, as well as being joined by our fearless city manager, Megan O'Callahan. We have some great folks here in the room. All of you are great folks in the room, but some special attendees today. I would like to thank Coach for being here, Lieutenant Governor Tressel. We are very excited to play host to you today. And we have many local, county, regional, and state and federal elected officials with us this morning. If you would please stand so that we could recognize you for your support, for your leadership, and for your civic service. A humble group of leaders that don't even stand when you recognize them. I love it. The City of Dublin is delighted to join with JobsOhio, the memorial tournament presented by Workday and the Columbus Partnership in presenting this morning's leadership breakfast. It is a tremendous honor to host one of the world's premier weeks of golf here in the City of Dublin. And we are proud to be a visionary, innovative, and global city of choice. We strive to provide the robust infrastructure needed for our diverse businesses to achieve great success in their field, similarly to the success you'll see on the greens and fairways out at Muirfield Village today. We are home to internationally known companies, as well as entrepreneurs and startups that are on their way to innovating in their own industries and improving the lives of everyone who calls our region home. We work to nurture a collaborative community where relationships are made, ideas grow, and businesses thrive. We take great pride in leading the way, much like the leaders you're going to hear on our panel today. We believe that playing host to a tournament of this caliber elevates not only the city of Dublin, but Central Ohio and the entirety of our state as well. We would like to thank leaders Brigadier General Bartholomew and JP Nusif for their great partnerships that we share. And it does seem most appropriate this week, a week in which we paused to honor Memorial Day and welcome the Memorial Tournament, that Anduril has taken a leadership role in this event as well. Thank you, Mr. Mears, for your company's outstanding efforts to transform the United States and allied military capabilities with advanced technology. I would also like to recognize one of our community's most outstanding leaders, who happens to be this year's Memorial Tournament honoree, Barbara Nicholas. I don't know if any of you were able to join us for the opening ceremony the other day, but it was moving and powerful. But I cannot think of anyone who better epitomizes the true spirit of the Ohio way. She is quiet, she's effective, she's humble, and she is a tremendous force who always remembers what is truly important and leads with sincere kindness. We will forever be indebted to her for her service to the community, to the game of golf, and to the countless charitable organizations that have benefited from her leadership. Thank you, Mrs. Nicholas, for all that you do. Most importantly, I'd like to thank all of you for being part of this event today and for supporting the Memorial Tournament, which brings countless visitors to the Columbus region, raises millions of dollars for outstanding charities, and is shared via broadcast with an audience around the globe. And now, please join me in welcoming my friend, who is someone who we owe great gratitude in this region for all of the successes that we've had. So, Columbus Partnership CEO, Mr. Kenny McDonald, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. How we doing? I'm a little hoarse. We were out at the concert. Dublin was a great sponsor of, I learned it's Noah Khan, not Noah Kahan. My 18-year-old daughter corrected me very violently when I said that. He was awesome. Thank you for sponsoring that great event downtown. And this is always a great event. I think we started this about 14 years ago. bringing leaders together, stakeholders in economic development to highlight one thing or another as we actually celebrate the memorial here in Dublin, one of the great Ohio events, actually one of the great international golf events. And it's great that we huddle a little bit at this and appreciate something from the outside. And then when we leave this room, we welcome the world not only to Dublin, but we show all the best of Ohio when we get out to the course. We have clients literally from all over the planet with us this week. We're sharing some facilities with JobsOhio. We have clients in every day. Some come every year. The ones that I love are the ones that have never been here before and have that Ohio experience, which is, oh my gosh, I didn't know. And they have a great time in the course. Then when we go out and we show them the rest of what we have and what's happening here, they walk away with that feeling that they want to come back. And this is just one special way that we do that and announce to the world that while we have all of this, we appreciate it, that we're not done anywhere near being done yet. Great companies that are in the room today: Intel, AWS, Anduril. I'm missing a ton that are the president in the room today. Thank you for your investments, for your enthusiasm for Ohio. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for spending time with us this morning. To all the elected officials that helped bring this together, and then just literally all the stakeholders. I always appreciate all the volunteerism around a golf tournament. Right, that's a spirit of what we do here in the Columbus region in Ohio, is kind of come together to make great things happen. It is my distinct honor to first thank JP Nassif and his awesome team. If they look a little tired this morning, they've had an event literally every morning. The event on Wednesday morning that celebrated our military, but also honored those Gold Star families. And we were fortunate to have Jack and Barbara spend so much time with them. That means a lot, and it is truly an honor to be part of that event. We welcomed Forbes yesterday and celebrated 30 leaders under 30, which gives youth to everybody. Just seeing the great people that are coming up and going to be the future of our region and be in this room in the future. And then finally, just the work that JobsOhio does every day to sell Ohio, to push us forward, to talk about not only the great things that we have, but to talk about the challenges and how we meet them. No one has made a bigger commitment to this sector, and that is the military defense sector, which we're fortunate to be the beneficiary of here across Ohio, than JP. Honored as Hall of Fame veterans this year, earlier this year. And from the beginning of his tenure at JobsOhio, he said, we want to make Ohio the best place for veterans to live, work, and play. And it's beginning to be very true. You hear that more and more. And as we bring great companies here, they tell us they want those veterans to work for them. And so it's not just something feels good, but it's a great strategy. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the stage my friend and the president of JobsOhio, JP Nassif.
Thank you. Thanks, Kenny. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor. I really appreciate you being here today. Mayor, thank you for hosting us. What a beautiful Ohio City and a great event. You know, we're here and we're promoting what's great about Ohio. And so what we've got is a wonderful event that's broadcast and amplifies that wonderful message to the rest of the world. And Jack and Barbara Nicholas and their family, I think that epitomize and represent the values that make us special and unique. Sometimes those values are hard to put your hands on and your fingers on, but they are special and unique, and they're powerful. And while we've seen population outmigration for 40 or 50 years, we've seen industry, manufacturing offshore, across borders and across oceans. What we are seeing in the last 5 to 10 years is that pendulum is coming back, and it's coming back in a big way. And our involvement, JobsOhio's involvement here, initially started because we wanted an event like Kenny suggested, where we could promote, recognize, and honor those people that serve Gold Star families, veterans and their families. As an Air Force brat, that's how I showed up in Ohio. I came with an Air Force family. I didn't know anyone. I saw all my friends, many of them in Ohio, had grown up together, going to sporting events, concerts, but I'd really like to go to one of those things. Didn't really know anyone. And it means a lot to those families. And it really determines where those nomadic individuals end up calling their home. And so we started some things in Dayton ahead of the BRAC over 20 years ago. And thanks to the support of JobsOhio's board and our governor, Mike DeWine, who was fully supportive of that, and our former Lieutenant Governor, John Husted, we're spreading that program statewide. But I think what we found is it's not only the right thing to do, but it's good for business and it's good for Ohio's brand. And it is completely authentic. As it turns out, Ohioans value that service. It's meaningful to them. And they want a vehicle and a way to say thank you to all those that serve. So I want to thank all of you for being here in support of that initiative. I want to thank Jack and Barbara Nicholas and their family for continuing to lend and invest their time, their talent, their reputation, their credibility, their resources to amplifying those great messages about Ohio. What we're going to do today is take the very broad set of values and really bring them in on one of our super sectors. Kenny mentioned military and federal, and those economic impact of those jobs are very important, but those people bring values of excellence, service, integrity that aligns, not coincidentally, with values that are important in Ohio. They're important to business, they're important to research, they're important in athletics, they're the foundation of long-term success. And we're going to take a look at an opportunity that we have in Ohio from three different lenses. We've got the Lieutenant Governor that's going to provide us the workforce opportunity from the state and academic lens. We've got General Bartolome, who leads the Air Force Research Lab. He's both a customer and a producer of world-class research. He'll provide that lens. And then we've got Dr. Zach Mears, who's going to provide the industry lens, because yes, a progressive, growing, successful company from California also appreciates those values and the workforce and the world-class research and the manufacturing talent required to bring it all to life, all for the defense of our way of life and our country, represented right here in Dublin, Ohio, with a great golf tournament and a wonderful quality of life. So that's what we're going to do today. And I'm not going to use any PowerPoint slides to do it, Lieutenant Governor. So I'm going to call up, we really have, and if you think about why we're successful and why we're going to accomplish all these lofty goals that we have, is represented by this amazing panel. Just world-class talent right here. First, Lieutenant Governor Coach Jim Tressel. Everyone knows the coach. College Football Hall of Famer, 5-time national championship winning coach, university president, Ohio Lieutenant Governor. Now applies that excellence and those values of servant leadership to statewide education and workforce. Please, I'd invite Lieutenant Governor Tressel to come up and join us. You pick your seat, sir, and I will sit with whatever's left over. Brigadier General Jason Bartolome. General Bartolome commands a $5 billion a year Air Force Research Laboratory budget at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, driving science and technology for both U.S. Air Force and the Space Force. Mind you, every advancement in aviation and aerospace, beginning with the Wright brothers flying around Huffman Prairie, has taken place right there on those grounds by people in Ohio. General Bartolome brings an incredible amount of heft to that role as that Air Force Research Laboratory transforms to take on a very important mission. He's responsible for formulating a comprehensive technology portfolio that anticipates the future needs of the warfighter while promoting the right risk-taking and problem-solving across a 6,000 government workforce. And that does not include contractors and research contracts. General Bartolome first came to Ohio in 1997. That was the year after I moved back as a product team lead and engineer with the F-22 System Program Office. He'll also provide a great opportunity as someone from outside Ohio that was outside here in the 90s and came back. That'll be a great lens to hear about. And then Dr. Zachary Mears. Dr. Mears, Senior Vice President for Strategy and Growth at Anduril Industries. As you all know, that is the largest job-creating project in Ohio history. He is leading the Arsenal One Advanced Manufacturing Campus, very close to here in Pickaway County. Previously, Dr. Mears held senior defense policy roles at the Pentagon, where he served as Chief of Staff to the then Deputy Defense Secretary Bob Work and the National Security Council's Director of Strategic Planning. And Zach lives right here in Dublin, so he's a homeboy. Welcome. Welcome to the panelists, please. What we're going to do is we're going to start off and we're going to ask each of our panelists to frame up a couple minutes just on their thoughts and views about Ohio and why Ohio. And then we'll start in with the questions. And I'd like to start off with our Lieutenant Governor, Coach Tressel.
Thank you, JP. How about a hand for JP Nassif, huh? Mayor Chris, where's that handsome son of yours that plays golf at Ohio State? Stand up. Here's a Buckeye legend golfer. Hometown. Dublin, Jerome. So frame up things. We didn't rehearse this yet, so we're just going to have fun. You're kind of behind the scenes. So let me tell you something that I was thinking about when Kenny was talking and the mayor was talking, and as you were talking about what's so special about Ohio. And Zach, we talked about a little bit the other day at breakfast, and I was thinking about, it was 2009, and there were 5 of us coaches that were asked to go travel around the world to visit our troops at various bases. And there was the head coach at Texas, Mac Brown, and Rick Neuheisel from UCLA, and Troy Calhoun from Air Force Academy, and Tommy Tuberville. At the time, he was unattached, but he was in between Auburn, I think, and Cincinnati or whatever, and Houston Nutt from Ole Miss. So we got on our KC-135, and they filled it full of 60,000 pounds of swag. So T-shirts, hats from all the schools, you know, pictures, all kinds of stuff. And we started in a couple bases in the U.S. We were at McConnell, and then we were at Scott Air Force Base, and then we headed to Germany. And we went to Germany, and then we went to Incirlik, and then we went to Balad Joint Base, Iraq, and then Camp Victory, and then Kuwait, and then Djibouti, Africa, then Rota, Spain, and then back to Andrews. And what was amazing to me, every base we would get to, they'd have a big hall like this set up with autograph tables and stuff, and they'd say to the soldiers, hey, you know, here's a little bit of home for you, American football, here's these coaches, a lot of you are from these states. Every single base, except one, I have to admit, when you lose one, you lose. Every single base except one, the line for the Ohio State people was out the door. By the end of the night, I would be signing UCLA hats, Wake Forest hats, Ole Miss hats. And after about 3 or 4 bases, they said, like, is everyone from Ohio serve? I said, that's who we are. And I have to admit it, Camp Victory in Baghdad, Texas had more than we did. Big Fort Hood, you know, contingent there. But, you know, we were 9-1, just like we were against that other team. So, but it one guy from Michigan clapping like laughing. You're too young to know about laughing. But anyway, that is what's different about Ohio, is the people. And every time anyone moves here and gets to know it, they're all in. And so framing up the world we're in, JP talked about the pendulum. You know, the pendulum swings in life. It just does. We've had 222 birthdays. I celebrated at Grizel Middle School our 222nd birthday back on March 1st or something like that. And the pendulum does swing. And when I was growing up, we were the steel capital of, Youngstown, Warren, Cleveland. We were the glass capital of the world in Toledo, rubber capital of the world in Akron, the aviation, capital of the world in Dayton, the insurance, Procter and Gamble, stuff all over the state. Well, sometimes things happen. Companies make decisions, things go on. But to JP's point, that pendulum has swung back, because it usually swings back to where it makes sense. You have a great lake and you have a wonderful river and you have all kinds of energy under your feet and you have a perfect location that can reach everywhere in the country and you have the right kind of people. And so we've got to make sure we grab a hold of that pendulum right now and make sure that we raise that workforce up. For today's workforce, it's a different workforce. One of the things we're finding as we travel around dealing with a lot of young people, this isn't your grandpa's manufacturing. And we've got to make sure that people understand the technology of the places like Anduril and the excitement. And what's really cool, my last frame up, because JP started going like this. I saw you over there. As we visit the technical colleges or the career and tech centers or the two-year schools, what you're seeing is a waiting list for a lot of the things that everyone says, oh, we need more of. The awareness of what's needed and what those career paths are like, it's starting to take hold. Now, it's a long game because we're talking about exposing young people to opportunities. So we have a long game that we have to win so that pendulum stays here for a long time. And then we've got a short game. We've got needs. By next Tuesday, he needs 4,000 people, or whatever it happens to be. But we've got to win the short game and the long game. And I think the momentum is going in the right direction, JP.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. So, framed up by Lieutenant Governor, academic, and national champion. Now let's hear.
I'm not sure I was ever an academic, but go. National champion, but not an academic.
University president.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't conflate those. Thank you.
Right.
So let's hear now from the government and the research perspective. General Bartolome.
Well, thanks, JP. Coach, that was great. For those that don't know, I'm a Midwest kid. And in fact, I was married in New Albany, and my wife's family was in Westerville. So every time I come back to Columbus, I think this is a pretty special place. And my first assignment, as JP said, was at Wright-Patterson. And so my oldest two kids were born there. And so after almost 30 years, I'm back. And one of the things that I see when it comes to the Midwest is, one, is hard work. It was instilled in me, and it's true today as it ever has been, about how hardworking Midwest people are. The second is there's a lot of ingenuity. And I don't know if it's the manufacturing mixture with farming and agriculture, but getting those two things together brings so much ingenuity. And then the last one is just patriotism. And, I think that the most beautiful flag in the country is that pennant that has great colors of red, white, and blue. And so if you go downtown Westerville 4th of July and you just see the amount of patriotism in that part of the world, it just bleeds. And so for the Air Force to have such a big presence, and for those that don't know about the Air Force Research Laboratory, it is a massive part of our national S&T critical infrastructure. And we have locations from Rome, New York, to Washington, D.C., to Florida, to New Mexico, to Maui, to California. And we have offices in Tokyo, in London, in Australia, Chile, and Brazil. the epicenter and the nucleus of that operation is the home of the Wright brothers in Dayton, Ohio. And if you ever drive past the museum, and if you haven't been to the National Museum of the Air Force, you are missing something, because it is one of the great museums in the world. And what you see is that hard work and ingenuity is what brought us to where we are today. And if we're going to win the future, which is really what we wake up for every single day at the laboratory, it is a short game and a long game, Coach. I mean, it's a short game and a long game. We have to win in the next 2 years, and we have to win in the next 20. And how do we do that? And that takes a lot of thinking and a lot of partnering. And so we couldn't be more excited in the Air Force to be in Ohio. And it is the home of aerospace. For those that don't know, it's something to be greatly proud of. And you all are invited to visit us in Dayton. And I'm really looking forward to the discussion, JP.
We appreciate you making time for us today. And now from our industry partner, one of our newest industry partners, Anduril, Zach Mears.
Well, thank you, JP. Thank you, Mayor, for the warm welcome and hosting us here today. And I do want to take a moment, where, as she mentioned, we're fortunate to be a sponsor of the memorial this year, but it's really a sponsor to lift up the folds of honor. As we honor those that made the ultimate sacrifice this week, part of our duty, a debt that we can never repay, is to take care of those that they left behind. And the Folds of Honor offers tremendous service to provide educational opportunities to those spouses and kids that need our care, that need our community, in honor of those that gave the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom and our liberty. So I want to take a moment just to give lift to the Folds of Honor Foundation, just a tremendous, tremendous asset. Glad that Jack and Barbara lent the memorial and the community that's gathered here today to contribute to that important mission. Yeah, please. So I'm a kid of Springfield, Ohio, graduate of The Ohio State University. I've left Columbus a couple times, but as JP noted, I've come back several times. Live here in Dublin, 2 boys, and part of what brought us back was family. Try as we might, and probably a fool's errand to start, but we did try. We lived in Washington, D.C. for about 10 years, tried to persuade grandparents to move out near us. And for good reason. They were like, life is here. Life has purpose here. You should come home. So after having the good fortune to serve in the Department of Defense, came home in 2016 and sowed the seeds of the pendulum that the JP mentioned. And I think the pendulum swinging is a bit of a passive way to approach it. I mean, you look back at Ohio's history. If you asked anybody in the 1940s what Ohio stood for, it's probably factories, farms, football, of course. That's true today. But those factories that produced rubber in Akron, steel in Youngstown, engineers in Dayton, they became the fabric of industrial production in 1945. Ohio bent the arc of that pendulum to the nation's needs. And we're at a similar moment today. And it's that fabric, that durability, that commitment to the nation's mission that has certainly me as a native Ohioan really proud and excited to bring Anduril Industries here. For all the reasons that Lieutenant Governor mentioned, there is not just an excitement, but a commitment to breeding from the time the kids are born to the time that they're in 4th grade, entering those early stage STEM career tracks, having a chance to go into a career technical center at their junior year in high school, to become an avionics engineer, to become a welder, and to know that they have a business partner that's investing in them and wants them to build a life of service with us. So we're just tremendously excited to be here. Look forward to talking over the course of the rest of the panel about why Ohio. And I will say one last thing. As much as certainly the joke inside Anduril was that we ended up here because I refused to move. But the real testament to Ohio is from Governor DeWine, then Lieutenant Governor Husted, to JP, to Kenny, to the broader regional development teams. We came to Ohio because Ohio moved mountains to generate opportunities for us. They understand the speed and pace, not just which we need to move, but the nation needs us to move. And they made it happen. And so we're excited about the things that we're going to build together over the next many decades.
Now that we've heard from all three panelists, let's get right into the topic. Again, our theme is Why Ohio? And I'll start with our Lieutenant Governor. As someone who has achieved at the highest levels in multiple domains, and you're currently building a playbook, how would you describe Ohio's winning formula?
Ohio's winning formula. You know, Woody Hayes would say that you win with people. And, you know, that's in football, that's the players you have. I think our winning formula would be, if you think back to the history of our country, everyone debates things, and even in today's world, everyone has opinions, and sometimes we seem a little bit divisive and so forth. But there's one thing that people normally agree on, is that the greatest generation was that generation that put down everything and wanted to make sure that this world stayed free, and went across the ponds to, you know, to serve and make sure there's world freedom. And I was reading a book about that conversation, and it happened to be a fiction book, but one of the characters in the book said, you know, I don't know if I agree that that was the greatest generation. It's like, how could you not agree? That's one thing I thought we agree on. And the character said, no, the greatest generation is the generation that taught them to be that way. And so why Ohio? What's our, you know, what's our secret sauce? What's it going to take? It's going to take the people, but it's going to take all generations to not lose sight of what it's going to take. What is the sacrifice that it's going to take? We can't just assume at Ohio State that we're always going to be good just because we've been good. You know, why were we good? And so I think the secret is going to be from top to bottom, making sure that whether it's in the education sectors or the parenting sectors or any of the sectors that make a difference as to the future of the person, is making sure that we teach them to be what we need, to be the people we need, to grab a hold of this pendulum, to take all of our good fortunes, to be appreciative for the work of whether it's JobsOhio or the General Assembly or the governor and the lieutenant governor Husted and all that. It's okay to be appreciative of all that, but what are you going to do? How are we going to teach you? And that's, you know, that's what you guys do for a living, right? Yes, sir. And so I think that's our secret, is we have opportunity. Now we'll find out if we can take advantage of this opportunity by how we train our generations.
Thank you, Coach. From the research and frankly government perspective, General Bartolome, someone responsible for the massive task of investing in research, driving innovation, idea creation into product development, all of which happens in Southwest Ohio. Many of those have to transform through the valley of death. How can you describe, in particular, Ohioans and the Ohio work ethic and value system that both helps you get through that valley of death and that also maybe has some resilience impacting when addressing adversity?
Yeah, so thanks, JP. Well, so for those that don't know the Valley of Death, it's the phenomena where great innovations and great things that'll change the world are discovered, but they end up not getting adopted. You know, how many people had Betamax back in the day? 5 of you. Did you all know that was the superior technology, but it wasn't the one that won? How many people have seen Indiana Jones? Do you remember at the end where they put the Ark of the Covenant in that warehouse with all of those boxes? Believe it or not, there are warehouses full of the most amazing things that actually haven't seen the light of day. So one of the things that we are working on really intensely with great partners in industry is to how do we disrupt that valley of death? And there's a lot of ways to do it. I think one way to do it is really embracing 2 words that I think are great together, which is win together. And so I really resonate with the Lieutenant Governor's comments as there is just an element, a team in everything that you're saying. And I think what is becoming extremely clear to me and to many is that as Americans, the world's changing very quickly. And the competitive environment that we are in right now is already upon us. And in some respects, we are already at war in the world of science and technology. Think about that. So you see high motivation from military leaders across the area, especially in places like the Air Force Research Laboratory, and how can we partner together to win the future together? And we're doing some interesting things in that space. One is a new dimension that we haven't really understood is just the massive scale that research and development is happening in the commercial sector. In the olden days, the Department of Defense really owned the R&D world and it benefited everybody. But today, if you look at the investments that Silicon Valley has made in just the last 18 months in the realm of compute for artificial intelligence, it massively dwarfs the entire DoD budget for science and technology. Some of you all are probably funded by private equity companies, and we are learning how do we partner with companies that are trying to do something great for the market and for the military, and how do we partner? In fact, Anduril was one of our first investments back in the day when we stood up AFWorks, and you see what it's become today. So we're very focused on that. Now, from an Ohio perspective, as I mentioned, I started my military career in the late 90s, and I thought Ohio was a pretty awesome place, but I was a little biased. I mean, I married a girl that was around here, and I still like her a lot. Depends on the day. I think my level of enthusiasm remains still very high, and she's still a little suspicious of what she got herself into. But it's almost been 30 years, JP, so she's a little bit, well, I guess she has choices. But what I would say is that if you drive up in Dayton and you just compare what's happening in that area, it's night and day, compared to what, I remember in the 90s. And, I think, it's just the conversation about the pendulum. And I really like, it just doesn't happen. We can actually guide the direction of it. I think that's what's happened in Ohio, because it's clear to me that the leaders, you all in this room, have taken significant action all the way up to Lieutenant Governor and the governor's level. The decisions that you all are making, I think, is very powerful in terms of attracting talent, bringing them close to things that are important, and finding really smart ways to try to harness and unleash it. So I think that there's just something happening in Ohio that I can see, and it's very clear to me, and I think you all really deserve a lot of credit as a community. And I'll tell you, we need that, not just here, but everywhere in the country, to sort of meet the challenges that I think everyone should spend a little time thinking about.
Thank you for that. So what you've heard, right, is from the different lenses. Before we get to Dr. Mears, we have an opportunity and a challenge. And Ohio is in an outstanding position to capitalize on that at a very important moment in history. And Anduril itself and its engagement with the United States Air Force is a significant departure from the norm. And it's a standard that's set and will come to life right here in our state. So I'm interested, Zach, you lived here, you left, you came back. Many of us share that same story and for the same reasons. But this time you staked your company's future on that decision for not just you to come back, but the future of the company to come back and essentially take off its future growth here in Ohio. Explain what led you to make that decision, what it was like communicating with the other decision makers at Anduril, and what made the difference for why you chose Ohio versus all the other places that you looked.
Yeah, there are a couple layers to this answer. First and foremost, back to Lieutenant Governor's framing that we're playing both the short and a long game. One of the most compelling arguments that quickly surfaced in favor of Ohio was the investments that, back to what made the greatest generation. These things aren't conjured. They've been invested in, they've been forged, and we quickly understood. Obviously, I knew, but helped others at Anduril discover what seeds you all have been planting and germinating for the last decade, and the leverage that was going to provide us, not just in the near term, knowing that we have, and it's not we Anduril, it's we the United States have immediate needs for capability development delivery that can't be afforded in the grace of time. We have to deliver now. And we recognize that the workforce, both here in the Columbus region and within an hour's drive, has been prepared for us for this moment. And then we saw the ability to invest over decades, because one of the most, I think, honorable characteristics of, dare I say, other Midwestern states, but Ohio in particular, is their durability, their sturdiness. And we want to build in a place that already has a strong foundation that's going to give us that confidence that as we need to continue to scale over the next decade, we're going to have the right partners to do so. And then there's, and again, probably a bit biased given my upbringing here, but there is this streetwise ingenuity that, when applied to the developments in modern commercial technology, is just going to breed an amazing set of outcomes for our kids and young adults here in Ohio to go do amazing things, not just with our products, but products that are coming from companies like ours. And I'll close with a bit of an irreverent story. And Julie, my comms partner, can admonish me later. My former boss, Deputy Secretary Bob Work, tells a story that's part truth, part lore, but it's about a Marine Corps platoon in Afghanistan in 2008. And they're out on patrol. Rules of engagement prohibit them from engaging before they can confirm that they're actually confronting some adversarial force. And they see over a hill a set of guys with a cart implanting what they believe to be an improvised explosive device along the road. And they take cover. Because they can't confirm the device that's being implanted, they start to approach the men and they flee. And the platoon walks up and they turn to the sergeant and they're like, "Sir, what do we do?" And he's like, "Next to the cart was a donkey." He unlatches the hitch to the donkey, and donkey starts walking off, and he's like, "We follow that donkey." Lo and behold, donkey walks back to a village, saddles up next to a house. Inside that house are the 4 men that were, after testing, clearly planting an explosive device along the road, and they take them into custody. They get back to base, and commanding officer's like, "Sergeant, how'd you think to unhook the donkey?" He's like, "Sir, I'm a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. I grew up on a farm in Ohio. I've been following jackasses my whole life." But it's that creativity to take the best of what you have in that moment and solve the problem. And, we're going to need a lot of problem solvers at Anduril. We've been, so pleasantly surprised from our time with the 4-year colleges, the 2-year colleges, the career technical schools and trade centers, that demand exists. We've got to find ways to drive capacity to satisfy that demand that currently outstrips our ability to supply it. But I'd rather have that problem than the opposite. And it's that sense of mission and purpose where you've got that junior that wants to become an avionics engineer and go build smart robots that are necessary for us to not just deter, but if necessary, win the fight against our adversaries. And we couldn't have found a better partner to do that with than Ohio.
We agree. Thank you very much.
Hey, JP, before your next question, can I interject?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. I don't have the rank you do. So we had a chance to sit with the good folks from Anduril the other morning. And what was impressive to me was absolutely they know what their mission is. They know the importance to our country. They know the great opportunity they have, but the difficulty of the challenge. But what I came away with was they want to make sure that they succeed for all those reasons, but they want to make sure Ohio succeeds right along with it. They don't want to be this shiny star sitting out there that will be able to attract great workforce and so forth. They want to be a part of an ecosystem whose everyone's workforce is positively impacted by. They want to be one of those next bellwethers. You think about the names in Ohio, that were needed at a time like we have today. Goodyear. We needed, the airplanes needed tires, right? Or we might not be free today. And the real bellwether leaders who made sure there was an impact on everyone else. So I was so impressed with their team that they have their personal goals in mind, but the group is even more important. And I think that'll be great for our state.
I know you have a day job, Lieutenant Governor, but if we might soon have a job posting for external affairs leader here in Ohio. So if you have spare time to offer, we'd gladly have you.
My contract ends in 602 days. So
I think his description was better than following the jackasses, slightly. But they both make the same point. So sticking with the durability and resilience and the value system that makes it work long term. You've all had to deal with the ups and downs of large, ambitious endeavors. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of resilience from your lens of either government and research, being a coach or an athlete, or trying to move a big bureaucracy with many heads, or in a highly competitive industry environment where you're not only competing with companies that make similar product offerings, but with an acquisition system that has not been used to buying them in the way that they're buying them. So let's talk about resilience and Ohio's role and Ohio's values. How would you approach it? Let's start with the general.
So that's a good question. I've been thinking a little bit about that lately. So I've been in some form of command 7.5 of the last 9 years, and in different locations around the country. And what I see are some basic ingredients. The first one is that I think that we, as leaders, everyone in the room, love to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And I find that if people are connected to something that is bigger than themselves, there's something to that is extremely powerful. The second thing I've noticed is that people really like to be a part of a team. They like to be around people they care about and that care for them. And that connection is worth its weight in gold. And then the last thing that really hits me is that people like to learn and they like to grow and they like to develop and they like to be stretched. And I think that if we have those three ingredients happening at the same time, then something amazing is going to happen. And so in the laboratory and other military commands that I've led, and actually have been serving under great leaders, every time those three ingredients were happening, good things were happening. And I think that the Woody Hayes quote, which is "You win with people," I love that. There's no doubt. So for those leaders in the room, and I guess as a leadership discussion, because I think actually at the end of the day, this is what this is really about, is, you know, I would encourage all of us to be thinking about those three dimensions as we go back to our organizations. Is, you know, how connected are we to the mission? I think, Coach, your observation about Anduril, I think we're cut from the same fabric in terms of making sure that both in the industry side and the military side, we see what we're up against and we want to do it. How do we build cultures where people feel a part of a team? And then, you know, how do we create opportunities for our men and women to grow and to learn? Because it's so important, so rewarding. And when that's not happening, I think you see, well, a lot more time on their cell phones. So those are thoughts that come to my mind, JP.
Thank you, General. Dr. Mears.
Oh, it's just like playing up the doctor. Yeah, so hopefully nobody has a medical emergency on the golf course later and asks for a doctor and somehow looks at me, because it's not that kind of doctor. You know, part of how, you know, we think about resilience at Anduril, and, like, you know, in particular how we think about that built into our products is, and, you know, Jason made reference to this a bit earlier. You know, one of the things that plagued the Defense Department's acquisition system for the better part of the last 3 decades was the way in which it was closed, so in many ways not intentionally, just closed to the model of commercially funded development. Didn't know how to buy things that were rapidly advancing and ultimately surpassed those systems that were fielded in our most exquisite combat systems today. So just to put it in perspective, you know, on board some of our small unmanned aerial systems is an amount of compute power that outstrips compute that's available in the Abrams tank today. There's more lines of code in your Roomba at home than there are fewer lines of code, smarter algorithms in the Roomba than there are in some of our more advanced fighters. And so how do you take the best of this commercial technology that allows you to conduct complex things more simply, more affordably, and start to build defense capability and product around those core principles? And so it allows you to, one, access supply chains that were not previously accessible to the department's programs. So, you know, as we look at Ukraine and the United States and European allies support our partners there, on the one hand, we've met the mission need for our partners, and we've provisioned them needed capability on the one hand. On the other, we've depleted our own inventory and now must await 2 years, 3 years in order to be able to regenerate just that baseline capability. As we project, you know, that sort of timeline on any potential conflict in the Indo-Pacific, that timeline's insufficient. We run out of core munitions capability within the first weeks of a conflict. So not only do we lack the capacity to generate what's needed immediately, we lack the scale and capacity to regenerate that capability. And our thesis is having that muscle, the ability to build quickly, scale that delivery, and then to do it again. And to be able to do it not in just one location. You know, quite plainly, we're obviously building and investing a lot here in Arsenal One, but the way in which we design our products is so that they can be built and ultimately qualified and delivered from many locations, because, you know, the fiberglass hull and the acrylic on our low-cost cruise missile, you know, such that anybody takes baths anymore. It's the same thing that your bathtub's made out of. The same stamper is available in almost all 50 states. So how do you think about opening up an all measure of supply chain how we produce what we must deliver to our warfighter. And that's what animates us and has us excited about Ohio. We already have, and some represent in this room, a lot of great mission system and tier 1 supplier partners. And we believe that there's going to be great opportunity to not just scale what you all do, but bring a lot of other great partners here as a function of what we're going to build. And it's that resilience that not only will make us more effective in terms of our ability to deliver for our military customers, it's going to breed resilience in workforce, the industrial investments that Ohio's been making across the aerospace and defense sector.
Thank you. And of course, the last word to our great Lieutenant Governor.
He might not be a medical doctor, but he's pretty damn smart. Not sure I understood most of that, but that was awesome. When we hear that resilience word, and General talked a little bit about one of the 3 things was that we need to get stretched, and talk about, we have to develop that resilience. And I guess the way I look at it is, I really think you have to suffer. You can't learn, if we said, we have to learn to tackle, well, you have to tackle. We can't just go on a YouTube and say, well, this is how you tackle. You probably have to go and suffer a little bit and practice and learn how to tackle. And I think back to in 2014, the Buckeyes ended up being the national champions. And I remember when we were on that run, I was long gone, but I remember the media always saying, is that team like your 2002 team? And I thought, man, I used to get that question all the time when we played for the national championship in 06. Is this like the 02 team? No, it really isn't. We played for the championship in 07. Is this like your 02 team? Well, no, it's not really. But when they asked about the 14 team, I said, this is a lot like our 2002 team. And the media said, well, why is that? I said, well, our 2002 team, when those leaders and those seniors were freshmen, they were 6-6. They suffered. Not fun to be 6-6 at Ohio State. Their sophomore year, they were 8-4, and their coach was let go. And then they had to deal with a new coaching staff. Our group came in, and we were 7-5. Well, you didn't come to Ohio State to be 6-6, 8-4, and 7-5. So that you suffered. You could tell going in 2002, they had suffered enough. And that's how their resilience was built. No one taught them out of a book. They lived, they suffered. Well, in 14, what was interesting, when they asked the question, was this like your 2002 team? Say, this really is. So, when these guys were freshmen, their coaching staff changed. And then the next year, they weren't in a bowl game. And then they got a new coach. And they'd suffered enough. And ironically, at the beginning of the year, they lost a quarterback. And then later in the year, they lost their next quarterback. And so they had suffered a lot. And to me, that's the way you develop resilience. And the thing that we've got to make sure we do in education and in parenting is not make everything okay all the time. We've got to allow our folks to suffer. You guys do a good job with that in training, right? You stretch them.
Yes, sir.
You help them. So that resilience, Ohio has suffered a little bit. So have we developed that resilience through that suffering? You guys decided back in, what year did we start Jobs Ohio? 2011. We decided, you know what, we're tired of being like the 45th favorable state that someone would move a business to, right? We've suffered with that long enough. So here's what we're going to do. and they came up with a plan. Governor Kasich started it, I believe. Yep. And they said, hey, no, we've suffered enough. We're going to come up with a plan to get better. And so, yes, throughout the long play, we're going to need to suffer more to keep getting better. But in this short play, maybe we've decided we've suffered enough, and it's going to help us really blossom. So that's your academic view of resilience.
It's a leadership view. So look, this concludes the panel, but I think what you heard in terms of why Ohio. First, I want to thank the panelists, City of Dublin, One Columbus, and Kenny, and our partner. We heard Ohio values of resilience, durability, innovation, creativity, service. The things that have made us great are going to continue to propel us in this moment in history where our nation, and I would argue the world, needs us to step up. This requires teamwork and collaboration. You can see industry, academia, government at all levels. And so we're going to close out the panel, and I want to make sure to thank our partner. We're going to move to a smaller session. Pat Berry and the Business Roundtable that focuses on collaboration of Ohio's business leaders and community leaders to make sure at all levels we're building a broad and narrow focus so that we can be successful. So thank you all very much for your time today. Thank you again to our panelists. Have a wonderful time at the memorial. Thank you.